Good Thursday. I think some of y'all it's Friday morning. Some of y'all it's like Wednesday. Actually, I don't think that's possible to be Wednesday anymore. But hello, everyone. It is Purple Haze. I'm super excited to see everyone. Also, can y'all please let me know if there's buffering or something going on in the chat? I'm always really nervous about that, y'all. So if you could just let me know, be super awesome. But other than that, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's here. We have an amazing conversation going to happen with the one, the only. You see her name there in the bottom of the description. But before we start, I just want to give a special congratulations and shout out to ISO Motion Gaming and the What a Warrior podcast. As you all know, ISO Motion just recently celebrated his 50th What a Warrior podcast episode. And as a gift, I won on that show a custom Xbox controller from the What a Warrior group. It's amazing. Thank you so much, ISO, Doc, and Dakota. I super love it and can't wait to use it. So thank you all. And then also, I want to give a shout out to everybody who's currently in chat. In Seven Specters, I see you. Xbox International, great show the other day. Jan, what's up? Jan, I'm going to be cheering you on at the New York City Marathon. If y'all did not know, Jan is a marathon runner, and she has a big race here in a week and a half. Blee Flo Fla, welcome, welcome, welcome. Sanchez, of course, always love to see you. Wit, Jinx, Ambi, thank you, thank you, thank you. And also, what's up? Cammie, great show. If y'all have not caught Cammie's premiere earlier tonight, you can go by at any time. And Cammie, please put towards the end of the show so we can all go watch that again. And David Wilson, what is up? But without further ado, I want to bring in our special guest, Megan McDuffie. What is going on? How are you, Megan?
Hey there. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. And,
awesome.
You know, there's been a trend recently where I would ask guests, because a lot of times they're content creators themselves and they have names and stuff. That sometimes I'll ask them, like, what does this name mean to you? I looked it up, and your actual name is Megan McDuffie.
Sure
so
is.
David Wilson, you have company here with just having super original for the show. But in your own words, how would you describe yourself?
Ooh, do you mean like professionally or just like as a human being?
Whatever you want to share with us.
Ooh, okay. Let's say I'm very much a Gemini in that I love both like super girly, adorable things, but I have like an extremely dark side as well. So let's just say yin and yang, baby.
I think all the women in chat are like, yep, I think that we can relate. Definitely. No, that's super awesome. And if y'all did not know, I put it in the title. Megan is a super accomplished composer, award-winning composer, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, as we get into like what has brought us all here today. We're going to also give like little kind of examples of what she's done, and really just talk about what does that mean to be a video game composer? And I should say video game composer because you also do other composing, which we'll talk about as well. But it's a gaming channel, so that's what we talk about. But
makes sense.
With that, one thing I always like to ask people, and I think I did some research on you, Megan. So it's kind of a little unfair, but for my audience who has not talked to you or have heard you talk, um, what is your first gaming memory? Like that first time where you like played a game and you were like, "This is cool."
Ooh, that's a good one. Ah, man. So I want to say that my first gaming experience was kind of around the same time. So I'm going to have to like mention two different instances that I distinct. Um, I in middle school would go to my friend Maria's house, and she had some, I want to say, I don't know if this was pre Windows XP, it was probably Windows 95 games. Zumbinis, does that ring a bell for anyone? It was like
Zumbinis
a
on
really cute little,
five.
yeah, a really cool puzzle game. That's one of my first gaming experiences, along with Roller Coaster Tycoon. Played the heck out of. And then the other was that my stepmom, of all people, had the original Game Boy, like, fat gray brick. And she had whichever Mario game was for that console. I can't remember. It was like Super Mario Land, maybe. Um, and there was an Animaniacs game. Those two.
And oh my god, what was the
Yeah, they
Animaniacs? I've
stick
never
out
played the Animaniacs game. What was the Animaniacs game like?
really hard,
Oh my
as
gosh.
most old school platformers were.
No, I always say, I think the hardest I think Super Nintendo, in my opinion, is just like a Souls platform. Like I feel like all the games on Super Nintendo were just like super, super difficult. I think all the games on not all the games, but like basically any movie that came out between like 1978 and 1992 has a game on NES. So it's like my movie
Hmm.
game platform.
For sure.
um, so um, so that's super cool. So obviously, but I asked about your first gaming memory at that time, like when you're playing these games, right? Animaniacs, I guess Roller Coaster Tycoon has like kind of a little melody as you're like doing the stuff in it. But
Kind of.
like at this time, were you like thinking that maybe you yourself were going to make music for games?
At this juncture, no.
No.
I was in middle school and was like, music's my life, but I hadn't figured out where that would exactly go for me, or how that would take shape. It wasn't actually until after high school that I really kind of nailed down my focus, if you will.
Really? Well,
Hmm.
and we're gonna talk a little bit more about your focus and systems that got you there. But first, I want to give a huge shout out to ISO Motion Gaming. ISO, I gave you a huge shout out. Thank you so much for the controller, Xbox controller. I see you there, Vet Cloud Gaming. Y'all might be seeing a show from one or two or both of those people pretty soon. I see Suave and Morgan Ashley. What's up, upstate New York? Um, so yeah, so after this thing, like, right, you had this memory of, playing with Maria. You have this memory of like, so it sounds like you're a PC gamer, like before PC gaming was a thing, in a way.
Kind of.
Y-
I mean, that was one of my, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny
So
because
that's
I'm not
cool.
a PC gamer anymore at all.
Uh-oh. There's PC gamers in chat. No, I'm joking. You're good. As everybody knows, it doesn't matter what platform you play on, as long as you're gaming, you're good with me. So, but what was like your first like console? Like you're like, when I think of consoles, I think, like that, like everybody remembers their first kiss. Actually, I don't remember my first kiss, but a lot of other people remember their first kiss. And a lot of people remember that first console experience. Um, what was like your first yo, I love this console?
That would have to be the N64. 100%.
N64. Really?
Yes, yes. Around the same time, shortly thereafter, actually, when I was playing the Windows 95 games, my dad got a Nintendo 64 just kind of randomly, and we would, like, every weekend that we were staying with my dad, we would go rent game cartridges at Blockbuster and the local video store. And that was kind of like when I really fell in love with video games.
So what game? Okay, so N64, a lot of people remember it. A lot of people, it was kind of like 4 ports in there. We've talked about N64 a lot on this channel. What games with N64?
My favorites were absolutely Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, Banjo-Kazooie, Mario Kart. My brother and I used to love watching my dad play Shadows of the Empire, and he'd get so frustrated, and we would just laugh at him.
Oh my gosh. Well, Megan, you mentioned this. There's a couple of traditions on this channel, and a lot of people in chat will tell you that we take a poll on this question. And with Nintendo 64, and I've gotten death threats about this. It's really gotten bad
What?
now. It's gotten bad. There are some fanatics out there, and I gotta keep telling them like, hey, you're wrong. So we're gonna like put it to rest right here. In your opinion, which is the better game? Mario 64 or Zelda Ocarina of Time? Like you play both. I mean, we can talk about Banjo
I have played both.
yeah. So you played them both. You have tons of time in it. You can remember the music. You can remember how Mario doesn't run right in the game. You can remember everything. Like what in your mind would you say is the better Nintendo 64 game?
I can understand why people are so up in arms about this because they're both amazing, but just first impulse would have to be Ocarina of Time, simply because I don't know. I think the story is what keeps me going back. I do always a hankering to play Mario 64, but Zelda maybe slightly more often.
And there you have it. Megan
Don't come
McDuffie
for
has
me.
just put she just put it to rest. It is Zelda 64 Ocarina of Time. We're gonna have to clip that. You have just settled the debate for eons to come.
You need a gavel.
It's done. It's done. It's over. It's over. Of course, there's gonna be people in chat. There's a couple, Mr. Byron Plays and Ambi, Ninja Guy X. If they come by, they always talk about Mario and so forth. And it's a good game. Like I tell people, it is a good game.
I mean, I do love Mario, as you can see.
Like, yeah, she loves. There you go. You're trying to write the fence now.
I'm trying to save face.
Like I may have lost some followers. No, it's super cool. So Nintendo 64. I think it's like really cool to bring this one up. Just because. Let me make sure everything's going well here. Nintendo 64 is a really good one to bring up because there are some amazing scores. Can I call it that, or soundtracks, or like in this period of gaming, basically in throughout the 90s, right? I think Square Enix, a lot. There's Nintendo. They really put a lot of. I think they had like in-house creative music people like throughout this time. Like, do you have a favorite like game where you're like, yo, this one they nailed it? Like when you're talking about from a music perspective.
I mean, Ocarina of Time again. Like the soundtrack's amazing. It's so fitting. I'd say though, like Banjo-Kazooie, legit has such just it goes so well. Like the whole package, they really knew what they were doing. It's so cohesive, and the music is definitely a big part of that.
Banjo-Kazooie, I think you're the only person who's mentioned Banjo-Kazooie from Nintendo 64 on the out of the people I bring on. And I think it's because when it came out, it was such like a cool game in my opinion, right? Like I don't think I've ever beat Banjo-Kazooie, so don't hate me for this one.
Oh my gosh.
But
Panic.
In your opinion, like why Banjo-Kazooie? Like, all right, you have the music, but there's a because it's like a 3D it's like the beginning of those 3D platformer type of games. Um, why Banjo Kazooie for you versus other games at this period?
I think, like I said before, it's just so cohesive. Like the whole experience, the level design, the music, the sound effects, the just like the cartoony nature of it, the goofiness, it all works so well together that it's just like this nice little package, tied with a ribbon and a cherry on top.
No, I think the unique thing about Banjo Kazooie, um, is so it's a game that was created. The studio that did Banjo Kazooie is Rare, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It is. Mhm.
And do you know who the composer is for Banjo? I'm sure you do. Who
Yes,
the
Grant
composer is for
Kirkhope.
Banjo? All right, so Grant, right? I
He
don't
actually
know.
signed my.
Do you? She means video game cartridge, y'all. Video game cartridge. Uh, so that's actually pretty cool to get that signed. Um, if I
He's a
had
cool
known
dude.
earlier, I would have said, like, could you bring it, show it to us? But
I
that's
should
okay.
have. It's right
No,
in the other room.
no worries, no worries. But I think one of the things that make Grant pretty a really remarkable composer, and I did not know this, uh, is okay. So you have Banjo Kazooie, and you have like kind of this fun, kind of it really brings everything together, really cool game. Uh, but he also did some pretty serious games for Nintendo 64 as well, right? So when we're talking about Rare, this is the person that did both GoldenEye and he also did the soundtrack to Perfect Dark,
Hmm.
which are like totally different genres, totally different feelings, totally different immersive experiences. Um, that I just don't think like I've seen that kind of like so far apart. Like, in your opinion, is that like what do you think of that for one? Uh, because I know like you have your own sound, which we're gonna hear here really soon. Um, but in your opinion, do you see like how these two relate at all? Or you're just like Purple, he was doing a job, get over it. Like, but to me, I feel like it was a really big deal.
I think it's awesome that he was so versatile. I say was like he's not around. He's definitely around. He's yeah, he's a really versatile composer. I actually really identify with that because I have sort of these little pockets of people that know my work in very, very different genres and different places. They don't always cross reference with one another. So my vocal work are like, oh my God, you do orchestral stuff too? And then like people are always very confused as to what genre I actually do. So
Well, you do
yeah.
like I have some questions about that, right? Because we're gonna get to like your big stuff, your big games and stuff. And I know like Nintendo 64, that's like your like that's your time frame, that's your jam. You played one of the you guessed correctly, or you answered correctly. Zelda Ocarina of Time is the best game on this platform. Um, so this is obviously we're gonna say like you're going into high school, you're just playing games. There's like any other like memories from your childhood or anything else that you're like, you know what, I really remember playing this one, or any soundtracks at all during this time frame between
Mm,
N64 and let's say PlayStation 2.
that whole kind of a blank for me. Uh, Although in high school, I'm not sure like where in the 4 years of high school this happened, but I would go over to my friend's house a lot, and she had a Super Nintendo emulator on her Windows, and we would play Lemmings and Clock Tower. So two extremely different games, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and I remember both of those distinctly and how fun they were, I guess. Because
So you're
I didn't have a Super Nintendo growing up, so it was like, ooh, there's more stuff out there
oh my god.
that I totally missed.
So you're doing emulator stuff when like it was like before it was cool. Like you were like just
This is
doing
way
it
back.
like you just like way back. This is like
This is
where it
like,
was like
yeah,
50% chance
2002-ish.
you would download a virus if you got it emulated. This
Oh,
is this time.
100%.
Yeah, you're
Yes.
like, yeah, like I corrupted several
Of course.
computers. Yeah. I know exactly this period of time. So you did Super Nintendo emulators. You probably then realize that there's several Final Fantasies that never released in the United States that are like way back.
Mhm.
I think that's what I played. I was like, oh, there's a Final Fantasy 3. And it was like something I'd never seen before.
For sure.
And so when we think about like, all right, this is cool, right? Emulation, you're playing stuff. Like, where does it become an idea where you're like, hey, there's music there. I'm kind of musically inclined and gifted. Let's merge these ideas.
Like where did that
Where did that spark
happen?
happen? Yeah, because I feel like I have this vision of like you running up to like your loved ones and they have like they see this like their pride and joy. And you're like, I know what I want to do in my life. And they're like, what do you want to do? You're like, video games. And they're like, oh geez. And then you're like, music for video games. And they're like, oh geez, where did we go wrong? But I don't think that's the case. So like what happened? Like where did this all come together for you?
It's a great question. One that I get asked quite often. Um, so in high school, come see me, knew I was going to college for music. And I actually started out as a vocal major because I had been singing my entire life. I still love to sing. I was in choirs like from, age 12 all the way through age 22.
Can we get a sample on the show of you singing?
Yeah, I mean, just pull up Spotify and
You're like, I'm
listen
not
to
singing
one
for
of a
you.
million tracks. But yeah, I started as a vocal major. It was super, super classically based and wasn't quite the right fit for me. I was like, yeah, classical music's great. I, obviously learned a lot and have a foundation from which to build my career upon. But I was like, I'm not going to be an opera singer. And that's kind of how the program was steering people. So I actually took a film music class and had that eureka moment where I was like, holy shit, this is what I've been looking for. This is my focus. I have always loved film soundtracks and sound design and started down that path. And so I got a film scoring degree. And that's kind of where it shifted, at least into music for me, digital media. And yeah, the video game thing, it was kind of a little bit of like a secondary focus. It's, along the same lines as films, differ somewhat technically, but it's still kind of, it's the same wheelhouse. And yeah, so that's where that started. And then video games just sort of organically grew from the film scoring focus.
So for anybody out there who's like, I've missaid that. So I'm going to see if you have any advice for anyone out there who would be interested in going down a path of like getting involved with music and video games. Like, would you say your path was the ideal one, or would you say like, don't do what I did, take this one? Like, what do you think?
Well, I think I meandered a little bit more than, if somebody knew they wanted to do this from one, then obviously you wouldn't have all of these little musical dalliances that I did trying to figure out where I was going. But just in general, for a music career of any sort, or really a career of any sort, forget the music part of it, networking is your best friend. Networking and persistence, those two things. So if you want to become a game composer specifically, it's really, really about those relationships that you craft on your way, while you're honing your skills. And just keep writing music, your production up to a commercial level. Be confident in, in playing your tracks for people who are better than you, and become one of those people that you look up to. Like, feel really confident in your skills and get critique from people who are better than you. But yeah, I'd say the number one thing is network your butt off.
Wow. So I love the advice. I love how you took it away from like video games to say like for any career, because I think it's true, like networking and just figure like know your craft and
It's
hone it.
applicable.
And then, yeah, that is such exactly, Cami. That is really great advice for anyone. So, we have a lot of content creators out there, some who are doing it for a hobby, some who do it for a career. And I think like it's something that resonates with them, and just everybody in chat for the most part has that thing that they are passionate about and that they're trying to get better. And I think that what you just said is just really universal to a lot of I guess when you say universal, it's like everything, but I'm going to say it's applicable to a lot, not universal to everything. So that's really helpful to know that. And so we had Rihanna Pratchett, the writer of, the Tomb Raider game that came out in 2012 and 2016, award-winning writer on the show. And she talked a lot about the creative process that it takes to write the narrative for a game. And she explored whether it's in-house or out of house and all those different components. um what I'm really like excited about you is you're bringing another side of the creative portion of the video game that people really resonate towards, which is the auditory, what you're hearing, really what in a lot of ways would be, in my opinion, the sauce that brings the game together. And so what exactly do you do to make the tracks for a video game?
Well, I mean, I don't know how technical you want me to go, because I can go in nitty gritty,
So
but I think that's maybe a bit much.
let's say like broad level, if you had to explain it to your middle school self, what would you tell her?
Hmm. Okay. Well, some of the technology hadn't been
It's not
created yet,
there.
so
Okay.
yes. Well, let's see. This to somebody who didn't really know what the heck a video game composer did. And obviously this differs from person to person and job to job. I just saw that question pop up in chat.
Yeah, I
That's
was gonna
hilarious.
bring it up here.
Um,
Let me bring it
it's
up
super
here.
funny. Well, so I haven't had any in-house gigs, so I can't speak to that. I have been a freelancer for the whole of my career. What I do is I basically take any sort of creative vision that the directors, writers, producers of whatever project have and best support them sonically. So usually what that means is I will get art. I will sometimes get gameplay, screenshots. I'll get a game design document that goes into detail about how the game's going to work, what the goals are, et cetera, and basically just work from that. Like a film composer would get ideally a rough cut of the film to start crafting ideas. I sometimes get nothing, and sometimes I get a lot of art and descriptions. So it's just kind of depending on what people have or where I jump into the process with the development team. And basically, I go into my audio software of choice. My digital audio workstation is Cubase. That's my favorite one. And I have a ton of synthesizers and stuff, and I just start laying down ideas and
Like literally
yeah.
laying down tracks. Like you can actually say that. I
Yeah.
like start laying down tracks. Like
I do. I start laying. Some of my trailer pieces are like 80 tracks deep. So quick.
wow. And I do we got two questions. You saw one of them. They want to know what's on your sweater, what's on your
Oh,
hoodie.
I'm actually doing a little self-promotion here, sort of. Let's see if I can get this all. It is
Creepy.
a podcast that I narrate for, and it is all short form horror stories from the horror community.
What? How do we hear? Is this on like Spotify and stuff?
Yeah, it's everywhere that podcasts are available. It's just called Creepy Pod.
Creepy Pod. That's super cool, and it's like super in theme. That's
Yeah,
really
it's really fun.
cool.
That's kind of
You
just
know,
like one of my little side fun things that I do.
and just so y'all know, in case y'all want to see my shirt, because if you notice, I'm wearing a t-shirt. I never wear t-shirts, but I am representing Centipede Recharge from Atari
Yeah, she
because we are
is.
talking
Woo!
to, you know,
I
I've
love
been waiting for like 2 months to show that off because once you told me you were open to
Perfect.
the interview, I was like, I have to get this.
I'm
So
honestly kind of jealous. I need to hit up my Atari team and be like, "Hey, where's my shirt?"
yeah, you do. Like,
I need one.
you definitely need one. And so you kind of
I need one.
explained, I think you were really humble in underselling what you do with video games. And here's the reason why I say that, Megan. Because like for y'all who played Atari, right? Any of the versions of Atari, we'll go with 2600 right now, and you played Yar's Revenge. You know, one of the which we said was the best-selling original Atari IP for the Atari 2600. Um, this is what you most likely heard. And so I want you all to like pay attention because this is what it sounded like. So that's what it sounded like, right? Right. It sounded like a fax machine, love child with an old like other computer, and they broke up. Uh so so that's what it sounded like, right? And then when we talk about Yards Recharge today, and I'm just going to play like the actual trailer for the current one. It's only like 20 seconds, y'all. So bear with me. This is what you turn that into this. So is that wait, you did do that, right? Or did you not do that one?
I did.
You did do
Did.
that. So that you went from that, what we just heard, to that, right? You did it for a game that had over, 40 years of like like program what people thought of Yars, right? Obviously, there's other creative teams, the artists that did a lot of their. Because I didn't even know Yars Recharge was like this little insect human person until like the new one came out. But you did all of that. Um, and you brought it together in like the way the music is, like you really brought that together. How do you do that? And to go to Bleed Flow Flaw, like that is funky, right? Like, like how do you do that?
uh, I wish I had a more solid answer for you, but it's a little bit, if that makes sense. They like, I don't know. They gave me art. They gave me some descriptions. They're like, we want this to be, kind of your typical, punchy, pumpy electronic style, but orchestral stuff as well. I'm like, okay, so you want like super dope orchestral electronic hybrid, really intense, really energetic, but not like dark. Anyway, I yeah, I got some art and wrangled what they wanted into a little idea ball and just had at it.
An idea ball. I love it. I love it. But I think you're holding out. I think you're holding out, Megan.
How
Like,
so?
like because that was That was me. Like, okay, I get it. Yours, you're like, you know what? It, this put it together, idea ball, like fragment sentence. That's what happened, right? That's basically what you just said. What is up, Anthology 008? Is that Anthology? How many different names do you have? I think I know who that is too. But with that said, so I feel like you're holding. So I'm gonna do another one. And I'm wearing the shirt. And if you did not know, like I said before, this is a lot of people in chat were part of the Stadia community, and we had this huge for 2 weeks. We actually have one of the champions in chat right now, Ryzak of Project Storm is out there. We have some of the world leaders for this next game. And so I want to do the same thing, kind of like what it was before and what it was after. Okay.
Let's do
So
it.
let's do it. Let's do it. And if you can, like, what was in your mind during this time? So before. So that was it, right? Super exciting. I know I was getting flashbacks there. My heart was racing.
Beautiful.
You did that. And then for Centipede, you took that, right? And again, artists had something, but you took that and you made it into this. You really you did more than I took this, and I threw it in here. Like, you actually created a narrative to the game, because for those who have not played Atari Recharge, the basic game mechanics remain the same. Sure, there's more visuals, there's a couple more weapons, there's a couple other things. But what really separates this from that in my opinion modernized the game, really recharged it, is the audio when you're playing it, right? And so obviously I'm sure, like, there you are, Megan McDuffie, coming off of your high of River City Girls, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But here you are. Atari calls you, and you're like, I didn't even know y'all still existed. And they say,
exactly
we want
you
to like, yeah,
no
like
joke.
you just like hung up. You're like, prank call, hung up. There they go. They call you up, and they're like, Megan, we think you did an awesome job. We want you to create a soundtrack for Centipede. And you're like, okay, like what do you do with that? And how do you go and how do you drop tracks? How do you update that? Like, where are you getting your inspiration? Where are you because, like, right, you talked about the synthesizer, you talked about this, and you have a unique sound. That's what I think is so cool about you. Like, I hear your video games and I'm like, I hear it. Like, I hear that thread in your music, which I think is pretty cool. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you just go lock yourself in a room? Maybe you don't lock yourself in a room, but you are
I
pretty
do.
dark, so maybe you do.
I'm in that room right
now. Okay, so how do you go do that?
Like I said, I wish I had something a little more solid for you.
Is it the big headphones that do it? Because you have some major awesome headphones on right now.
These are very large and in charge, aren't they?
Like, I have these little things, and you're like, like
mech suit. A gift from Turtle Beach for a Comic-Con panel I did. They like sent all of participants these heads. I never get a chance to use it, so I'm rocking it today.
So I love how I'm trying to flex for you, but you just drop flexes. Like, when I was on a panel at Comic Con and, they gave me free stuff. For the rest of us, we have to pay to go to Comic Con. They fly you out, you get free stuff, and it's
Oh, I
really
didn't
nice
actually
stuff.
go. I wish I had. It was legit in this room right here. They just did
Oh
an
my
online
gosh.
panel, not dissimilar to what we are doing right now.
Oh my gosh, are you saying that the Shades of Purple is Comic Con level?
Yeah, just add like a couple more guests and it's exactly the same.
But I think the quality of my guests are better than Comic Con. Let's be real. No, I'm
It's
joking.
very possible.
So okay, so there you so you're there, they call you up, they're like, here you go. Like, is there one of the things I was thinking when I was playing so Missile Command, uh Asteroid, Centipede, these are all games that I really enjoy playing. Um and one of the things as I was playing them is like, how do you not like repeat something where you're like, yo, I'm playing this, I put this in Centipede. What makes you say like, this goes in Centipede, this goes in Black Widow, this goes in Missile
Mm.
Command, you like, this goes in a yard, like, because these are like similar game mechanics for the most part. You here, you shoot. Yeah, it's basically
Mhm.
every single, or you do something to that effect. How did you like? Did you do it one at a time? Did you just say like, yo, like here's a beat? Let me like, you're like, I got a beat, and you just put it down. Like, what goes on?
So I tackle each game at a time. So like I started with Centipede. That was the first one that I worked on for Atari. And it's funny that you play the old I guess sound design. It's not really music for
Right? It's like
the
ding.
original
Yeah,
games.
it's
Yeah.
sound
Just
effects probably
pure
sound.
sine waves.
Yeah.
I did not listen to those at all beforehand. So they did not color my judgment or in any way influence reading. Um, I guess from like a high level for Centipede, it was okay, it's about bugs, right? That's overarching theme. You got a bug, you got to shoot bugs, you got to eat whatever. You're a bug. And I from there was like, okay, what sounds like bugs to me? And that became sort of my sound palette. Similar with Black Widow. I used things that were kind of tinny and wiggly and just conjured the feelings of insects to me. Um, so that's like kind of where I start usually in crafting something like this is I take sort of the overarching idea, the art have you, and kind of try to translate it into sound. Um, from a writing standpoint, I personally like to start with drums and bass. So I get that groove going, and we'll go in and in the same session, like start throwing melodies at it and be like, okay, melody here. Okay, now, it's very typical song structure. Not always, but usually I'll do like an A part, a B part, back, make it a little different, add some, more sparkles and whatnot. Um, yeah, so it's just kind of me
You just kind of
in
just
this
toss
room.
it. A person once told me, a game composer one time told me that they take a design, they take an idea, they do this, and then they make an idea ball. And I think you just explained this very well.
Someone.
Someone once said that recently to me when I was talking to them about building a game or composing for a game. So I think that's amazing. And, I kind of talked about it earlier, but you have a very distinct sound. And you talked about it. You have synthesizers. Like, I think, like, you just like, when I imagine your room for this, you have like 50 synthesizers everywhere. Um,
So that is true. However, they are not analog. They're all digital and they're all in this little computer right over here. I don't have like real rack synths.
Oh
Some
my
purists would hate on me
god.
for
You know,
that.
I was gonna act like I was a purist and be like, "How dare you?"
Oh
But
my
I
god. Well, to save myself somewhat, that behind me, oh, I guess I can point this way. This covered thing right here is a Roland Juno 6 from the 80s. So that's legit, but I never use it.
Oh, it's just back there. It's like a gift where you're like, "This will be cool." But you don't need to. Like, that's technology. You're like, like we
It's
evolved.
great. I love it. It just doesn't I would need to kit for it so it would actually talk to the computer properly, and it's a whole thing.
And you're not about whole things at all.
No,
You're
no,
just
they'd
like,
have to rip out the guts of it, and I'm kind of afraid to have anyone touch it.
no gut ripping out for the synthesizer for you.
No
Uh
disemboweling of the synth.
so so why synthesizers, by the way? Like, so Ninja Guy X, who's another person who comes by the show, who had his own channel show not too long ago. I was talking to him about bringing you on, and he mentioned a couple of things. He's like, a woman synthesizer, like synthesis, or however you talked about people who do synth music retro from the 80s. There's not too many women who do that, right? It's kind of like, or maybe there is, but it seems like
No,
it's
there
kind
aren't.
of like, it's like kind of two things. You have like a synthesizer, you have a retro type of deal, and you kind of combine them and you do it really, really well. Um, why How did you choose this as the place to like hone your craft?
Hmm. Well, I think I I've had a musical background that goes from day one. I had a lot of influences. I listened, like I had mentioned before, I listened to a lot of film soundtracks. So I kind of got and like was classically trained in voice. So I had the piano lessons and the vocal lessons and everything classical and orchestral. And so I have that influence. But I also, in my free time, listen to a lot of classic rock and electronic dance music from the 90s and like,
Like
the
real McCoy?
European like club scene. Like
Like
what?
like like real McCoy?
uh,
Or or like who's your I don't know, like, there was one time when I was like a 90s dance techno type
mm,
of person. So, like, what are we talking, like, Alice DJ?
we're talking.
How long am
Yeah,
I
yeah, I remember that.
I had to go way back in my mind to think of that title right now. That
Ace of Base for sure.
Ace of Base. Wow.
Yeah.
That is so 90s.
Very 90s. I even dabbled in the Spice Girls for quite a while.
Spice. Okay, so we had this question as well before, and it also caused a riot because I think we had a lot of fetish type of people in chat that day. But who's your favorite Spice Girl?
Oh, at the time when I was really into them, it was definitely Baby Spice.
What? Why? Why, baby?
Why?
Yes.
It's hard to remember the thought process of my middle self, but it was probably her aesthetic. Um, I also identified as a blonde, fellow blonde companionship. Who knows? I don't know.
Oh my god. Okay, so that was back then. Who now?
Who now? Oh, maybe Ginger.
Ginger.
Yeah,
Okay, I do see you are
a little more spicy.
a little bit more spicy. But okay, okay, I'm not gonna hold it. You picked Zelda, so I'm not gonna hold this one against you.
Okay, so
You
I'm
know,
like 0, right? The
you're like
sliding
you're like
scale
it's like I mean it's
was.
like you did start off by saying you're like a little girly, a little dark. So I'm like, okay, I kind of see it now.
I'd say I'm
Um,
more dark than girly, but people always assume I'm very. Wait, did I just say? Yeah, I'm more dark, but people always assume I'm girly just because I'm super short. I look younger than I am, and people always assumed I was a kid. So I think I
so
think
you
I'm like
just
over
so
with the darkness.
y- so you were scarred for life, and now you're kind of like what's the movie with the girl who's like I don't want to ruin the movie, but it's like a grown woman who plays like this little girl. It's like a haunting. It's like a horror film. They just came out with part 2 recently. I can't think of it. The Orphan. That's
Mm,
that's kind of like everybody thinks you're kind of young, and you're like, no, I'm not.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I just called her the orphan. But no, seriously. So you get that sound. So you really like that sound from the 90s, that techno sound and so forth. Um, and you're like,
And
that's
80s film soundtracks.
80s film. Okay, so what's your favorite 80s film soundtrack?
Labyrinth by Trevor
Labyrinth.
Jones. Yep, Bowie and Trevor Jones. The Trevor Jones did the non-vocalized songs in it, the score, and then Bowie did a lot of the vocal stuff. And it's just the weirdest freaking movie ever. It's my favorite movie of all time. But the
Labyrinth.
score, yeah, the score itself is really cool.
Okay. I don't
Yeah.
actually, I remember sitting down to it. I don't think I finished it. I gotta watch
What?
it now. You know, I mean, my favorite soundtrack from the 80s is Ghostbusters. That's what
It's a
type
good
of
one.
person. Yeah.
That's a good
I
one.
don't,
That one brings the funk if we want to
no,
inject more funk into this conversation.
no. No, so I think so that's super cool. For you to pick that for that, and that's where you like went. And I know you have a hard stop here at the top of the hour. So I do want to get a couple more questions in. Um, because one of the things we talked about Atari Recharged and your process through that, but really probably like your award winning project, and the one that really in my mind put you on the map was River City Girls.
That one definitely got the most hype, the most ears and eyeballs.
Yeah. And so for anybody in chat, River City Girls is kind of a spiritual successor to River City Ransom, the NES game, if y'all ever played that. And it's very much like a Scott Pilgrim type of game, but better. More open world, more everything. And you actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Meg, you did the entire score for River City Girls.
Just about.
Just about.
Just
Okay.
about.
So I have a question. When you first play this game, like, right, you have the synth type of stuff in the game, but the opening sequence of that game is kind of like this rock song type of
Hmm.
deal. Did you do that?
I did not. That was one
You
of the
did.
only tracks on that soundtrack that I did not do.
Okay. Because so that's totally cool because I was like, it's an interesting song. It
They
just
wanted it to be like, very Japanese
you
anime
killed my
pop kind of deal.
boyfriend. It's a weird, it's like,
That's
so
their thing.
yeah, so okay. But the thing about that's cool about this song though, or this track is you actually sing in it. Like a lot of games, especially on Nintendo, it's like, unless you're talking about like Ocarina of Time and there's like some like choir in the background singing or like some well, like you sing in the game, right? Like
I do.
there's tracks of you
Not on that first track,
not on that one,
but
not on that one, but later
right.
on, there are tracks that
Yeah, I do. All of the other vocal tracks are me except for the end. So like the bookends aren't me, but all the other vocals are.
wow. So you did that. You
I
did
did.
awesome. It put you
Thank
on the
you.
map. And then they were like, she did kind of good. So they invited you back because River City Girls 2,
Yeah. It's
it's like
coming.
it's coming like
It's
this
coming.
year.
Yeah. It will be this year. I can guarantee that.
Oh wow. Whoa, y'all, that is inside information.
Confirmed.
She's telling you it's coming for anybody who is open to the action RPG. And if you don't know the game I'm talking about, but you know a game like Scott Pilgrim and you're interested in playing it, River City Girls is actually played, I think it's on all consoles. And for my cloud gamers out there who are in the United States, it is actually on Amazon Luna. If you want to go give it a shot and play it, it is actually a pretty cool game. Like I said, it's a beat 'em up. You walk around, you play as these two chicks who are trying to get their boyfriends back. Like I think I summed it. That's like the game.
That's
And it's like in this like
it.
1632-bit type of game. So it's actually pretty fun when you just going in there and just wrecking havoc like no other. So you did that, and that was, I would imagine, like a super fun project for you to do.
Absolutely.
Um, just from start to end, because was the studio wasn't Nintendo, or like who called you for that one? Like, how does this work? Like, do they just like call you and they're just like, I want to speak to Megan and I want you to do something awesome. Like, how does this work when a game company is like, we want you, Pikachu?
Good question. Um, Remember how I started off? Well, this was one of my networking miracles. I just barely knew another fellow composer of mine named Dale North. He's done a bunch of stuff. He's really cool. Um, he and I were in a group called the Materia Collective, a group of musicians and video game enthusiasts who like to remix and rearrange video game scores. So he and I barely knew each other. We had not really even talked to one another before. However, Dale was friends with one of the directors at Way Forward, the studio who created Shantae and River City Girls, etc. And they got into a conversation like, hey, looking for somebody, a composer, music producer with kind of a synthwave, or not synthwave, a synth pop sensibility, something a little retro, but also modern. And Dale was like, oh, I know somebody for you. And he sent them a bunch of my work, just examples of my stuff. Okay, hot damn, that's it. So Adam at Way Forward, the director, he contacted me by email. He was like, Dale sent me, and you should do stuff for us.
I love, so what I like about I like how they're like, yeah, we want a synth sound, but like an orchestra type, and we want it retro but modern. We want it a little hot, but also cold. Like,
Right.
that
Make
you're
it
like,
pink, but also black.
yeah, you're like, I know Megan. like, that's what you're known for. I got this person. So it makes me think like, what they would tell you, what they would not give you, because that was pretty impressive for you to like get that one. And as I'm looking at 8 o'clock. I know, Megan, I'm trying to get you out. Don't worry. Don't
Okay.
worry.
If we go over like 10, 15 minutes, it's totally fine.
Y'all, she's gonna do it. She said it.
I'm gonna
She
do
said it.
it.
So y'all ask questions. We know what we're gonna do. We're gonna write this baby out, till the wheels fall off.
Milk it.
So so let me slow down. So with that said, um, as someone who's in the game industry, right? A lot of us, we play games. Everybody in chat plays games. Their kids play games. Their parents told us not to play games. You know, where, from your perspective, do you see gaming going? Like, as a creative, like, right, where do you see that trend going from, like, the games that I'm sure you're probably under NDA for some games you can't talk about, or conversations you've had, but where do you, like, from a creative perspective, right? Do you see games becoming more complex in the music compositions? Do you see, like, is there certain trends from that perspective? Can you give us
Well,
any insight?
I mean, I I really am like not great at predicting the pulse of where technology is going to end up. But I kind of want to say there's going to be more push for VR just cuz that's like kind of still sort of fledgling as far as technology goes. And I think part of that might be AR kind of come along for the ride. So 3D, both visual and auditory soundtracks might become a little more immersive in that sense, which will be a very interesting mixing challenge to
What does
get.
3D audio sound like?
It would basically be surround sound, which already doing that, but combine that with reactive audio with inside the game. There are game cues that change different parts of the audio that plays. I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen there. One thing I would hate to see happen is AI generated music becoming more of a thing.
Is that a thing now?
It very, very small thing. I don't think it's actually in any published games that I've heard of. But you see all over is the AI generated art is becoming very, very, very exciting. And people are like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I'm just kind of worried that at some point robots will be doing my job. But who knows?
No, I don't think they can put an idea ball like you can. So, we do have a
Idea ball. Doesn't sizing.
I think it's amazing. It's like I have an idea ball. It's like I can visualize it,
Maybe it's
you know?
this like little I'm picturing like onigiri, like a little rice ball, but it's all the little pieces of thought.
Yeah, and we have Mostly Martinez. I see you out there, and we have a question from David Wilson, another
Hmm.
fellow person who came on the show. That's not David. There we go. Another person who came on the show and used his name like you did, Megan. You didn't give us anything creative. You did the one your parents thought of, so we're gonna use that.
Sure did.
Um, Angry Poultry
People think
Games.
it's a fake name, so
Yeah, no, I mean that is a question. I didn't want to. Is it is it? Are you really Megan McDuffie?
yeah.
I,
It's on my birth certificate.
Fake news. All right. With that said, with that said, is there any series or franchise or even just style of game you want to write for that you haven't already written for?
I would love to do something either super epic sci-fi or super epic horror. Even better, like combine the two. Like I would love to do the next BioShock or Dead Space, something like that, because I am a huge horror fanatic and I would love the ability to flex the orchestral chops a little bit more because most people hire me for um, and again like hybridizing electronic and orchestral would be really fun, but at that level, at that AAA level, would be super cool.
Oh, wow. So if y'all are just catching us and I see you, Simpleton, thank you. I see you, Angry Poultry Games, aka Cloud Gaming Dad, aka Amazing Veteran. I see you, Justin. Thank you all so much for coming by. We're just talking to Megan McDuffie, learning a lot about what it means to be a game composer. She did the Atari Recharge series. She did the River City Girls 1 and 2, which is about to release. She just gave us that insight not too long ago. And we're talking just about, projects she would want to do in the future. Also, she told us that she does a voiceover for a podcast, a horror podcast. So this is really cool because she said she loves horror and she would love to do a horror game. So, it's kind of that year or season of the year, Halloween. For some of us is Dia de los Muertos, right? We have a lot of different things going on that even though that's not really horror, but um favorite horror film.
Hmm. I feel like every decade has a standout, but
Uh-oh. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna
of
say
all time
favorite from the 80s.
from the 80s. Ooh, okay. It's a I love so many horror films. I would say it's a toss-up between Poltergeist and the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay, the original. All right,
Yeah,
all right.
yep. I
Um
like really trippy shit. So anything dreamy, nightmare-y, like cerebral, that's my jam.
okay. So what about so no Shining, not that type.
Oh, I
So
love The Shining. It's just
yeah,
not my favorite.
favorite. Okay, so 90s.
90s. Ah, that's hard. I'm like totally drawing a blank for 90s horror movies that I like. Let's skip
All right, we'll
2010s.
go 2010s. Okay, well, you youngins, we'll do these ones that horror just came out in the last 10 years or so.
I absolutely love It Follows. If anyone's seen that,
It
it's
Follows?
It Follows. It's freaking. It's a slow burn.
What?
It's real creepy. Again, very cerebral, dreamy,
I haven't seen this.
so
Chat, have
weird.
y'all seen it? It Follows?
Oh, and get this. The guy who cooked for Fez and Hyper Light Drifter, he's a very well-known indie game composer. He did the music for it because the director heard his music in Fez and was like, I gotta hire that guy. It's really, really cool
You all have
soundtrack.
all your little inner little I feel like one day we're gonna be listening to, like, you're gonna be doing this horror, because I think it's super cool, and someone said it here, in chat, Angry Poultry Games, feel like audio is 80% of a game. Try playing a game on mute and see how much less impactful it is. And I totally get that. And that's why I feel like it's like kind of that sauce that just brings the whole dish together. And it's really interesting that you said horror because it's kind of a similar thing. Like try watching a horror film or playing. Actually, this is what I do. As people know, as I'm playing a horror game right now, I just read chat. I don't even listen to the music because it's too scary. So it's really interesting that that's what you would pick because it's like one of those genres of entertainment that really invoke so much emotion um, through the music.
Ooh, Lo-Fi
Um,
Monk knows what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Lo-fi, it follows has Lo-fi always knows these things that are so obscure. Him and Mr. Urban World, they like always have this stuff. I now have to watch this. I now have something to watch. Um, so I
It's a good one.
so all right, so it follows. So that's what I gotta watch. It follows. That's your recommendation. And is there any like stories in your horror podcast? Now, are these true stories? Is this like true crime, like the murderer still out there type of stuff, or is this like
It's very fictional.
very fictional? Okay.
It's very fictional. Yeah. A lot of them are creepypastas or just weird pulled from Reddit with, author's permission, of course. But yeah, a lot of them could potentially be a real story, but aren't. And others are very fantastical.
And now I gotta listen to that. And that is called um the podcast name again. I'll link it here
It's
after the
called
show.
Creepy. It's very simple.
Creepy, it's her shirt, y'all. Creepy, a horror podcast is where
Yeah,
Megan McDuffee
Creepy
does
Pod.
voiceovers. Creepy Pod. And and like do you just read it or do you like put inflection in your voice and you're like, it was a long story. Like, do you do anything like creepy like that? Or like
Yeah, a
or
little bit if the story calls for it. Just
oh my
depends.
god.
And we have a sound designer, producer, takes all of the narrator stuff and, adds sound effects and stuff to it.
Awesome sauce. Well, Megan, you gave us a little bit of extra time, so we took it. And I know you definitely have other things to do, but what is next? What can we expect from you coming, next? Like, can you give us any hint of like, are you going into movies? Are you going to sell video games? Do you have like something really big coming? Can you give us like a flavor of what's next for you?
Sure, sure. Harkening back to earlier on this discussion when we talked about Banjo-Kazooie, we have a complete reimagining of one of the level tracks from that Mad Monster Mansion. It's my favorite level. I redid the song, or I redid the music, added lyrics and vocals and everything to an instrumental song, and that comes out tomorrow as a spooky Halloween treat.
What? Wait. Where can we find this?
It'll be on Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, all the things.
We just look up Megan McDuffie tomorrow and it'll pop up.
Yeah, I'll be tweeting about it, Instagram, etc. Actually, I shot a music video for it down in LA last month, he does video game covers. His YouTube channel is Richard EB. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's great. Yeah, we have a music video coming out for it tomorrow too.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So y'all gotta check it out.
So that's the immediate future.
That's the immediate future. So that's super awesome. And I've linked your website, your Twitter, your YouTube down below.
Awesome.
I'm gonna have to link the podcast as well if you all want to follow her. She's a cool chick. She does music, she does horror. She once again proved me correct that Zelda Ocarina of Time is the best N64 game. out there. She didn't do so well with Baby Spice being her favorite Spice Girl back in the day, but that we're not going to hold that against her today. But Megan,
Give me a break. It was 1999.
oh, so it seems like you've gotten hate for this before. So
Oh, I don't know. I'm just trying to save face.
No, you're good. This is super awesome. Any last words for us? We're super pleased to have you come by and just talk to us about what it means to be a game composer and for a game that a lot of us got addicted to over the summer. Centipede Recharge. It was really cool to hear the person that that made that music that so many of us listened to for hours and hours on end as we try to beat each other's score. So.
Well, I'm glad y'all enjoyed it. I will say that, again, River City Girls 2 is coming out this year. I can guarantee it. That is one of the large things that I have coming out. So be on the lookout for that soundtrack. It is a doozy.
Well, you sing in it.
I do sing in it. I sing.
Okay, so if y'all want to hear Megan McDuffee sing, you can wait for River City Girls, or you can just look up Megan McDuffie on YouTube, Spotify, or any other thing, and you can hear her vocals.
Yeah, I'm all over the place.
She's an amazing artist. But with that said, y'all, I am Purple Haze. As always, the proof is in the playing, and as you all know, doesn't matter where you game, how you game, what you game, when you game, why you game. As long as you're gaming, you're good with me. And I definitely appreciate all y'all coming by today and just listening to this amazing, award-winning game creator tell us her story and just give us a little insight, a little peek behind the curtain of how the magic and the funk is made. All right, with that said, thank you all, and I will see you all next week. All right, take care, everyone.
Thank you.